Three, two, one, here we come. Freedom by 40 and McNallie Money are in the house. We were running a couple minutes late there, Freedom. You just closed on some major real estate. I was panicking you might not make the program, so I forgot to upload the presentation. But we're here. We're 2 minutes late, and we're ready to talk miner technical analysis. It's been a really exciting couple weeks in the Bitcoin mining space. I think we're getting close to that big bull rally we've all been waiting for. It's been a great week in terms of miner share price performance. We're starting to recover some of those losses. And you're now back in full swing here, Freedom, ready to give us an update on these charts and take some questions today. So looking forward to this one, buddy.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on. I know it's been a while, so excited to get back to it and update some of these miners. So
yeah, most definitely. So we'll get right into it. I've got a couple of slides here. We'll start out on my screen, then I'll flip it your way and we can get into just following along on your screen with the cursor like we did last time. So big like for Freedom by 40 here, you guys. I kept your old picture, your old slide, Freedom, just to show the growth. You had 14,000 subscribers last time you were on, or maybe one of the first times. Now you're up over 26,000. I know your Patreon's taken off as well. I was admiring that down in Nashville. And you've been making some big moves in your personal life, really tripling down on the Bitcoin strategy like our good friend Michael Saylor taught us in Nashville. And you've actually dumped some real estate to free up a little cash flow for investing, eh?
Yes, sir. Yeah, just closed on my fourplex literally an hour ago. So I got a bunch more cash. Probably going to do some miners, a little bit of Bitcoin, and a little bit of alts. I'd say probably mostly miners, and then probably 50, 25, 25 or 60, 20, 20 miners, alts, Bitcoin. So we'll see how it goes. Unfortunately, I don't get the check. They couldn't wire it for some odd reason, so I got a few more days to wait, but we'll see how that plays out. Should have some time to get in, so we'll see.
Gotcha. And job change as well, getting some more time for posting content, a little more flexibility. So that'll be great for anyone watching this. Make sure you subscribe and take a look at Freedom's Patreon as well if you want individual miner analysis. I know I'm in that one. You actually do videos in there as well, which is really nice. And you can walk people through maybe who aren't as experienced in the technical analysis. So I've learned a lot from that. Now moving along, guys, I just wanted to bring up a couple macro slides before we flip it over to Freedom and get into the technical analysis. Anthony's on the road today, so he's not going to be here. It's just Freedom and I, and then we're off to Amsterdam next week. So this will be one of our last live streams until we get back. However, nicely for us here today, Freedom, Bitcoin making another run. We are over 66,000 a couple times here in the last few hours. Really nice breakout we've seen over the last few days. I know we'll probably talk about Bitcoin first up, but just at a high level, macro level, what are you seeing here in the chart with Bitcoin?
Yeah, so Bitcoin looks good. I'm still a little bit just cautious, I guess you would say, just because we still have quite a bit of resistance above us as far as, from 65 to 70K. And I'll show you guys in a little bit, but some of the technicals are at least getting a little bit overheated. So I'm thinking maybe just a little cool off or a little sideways before we really make or start that next run. Kind of heading up to a big barrier and kind of running out of steam a little bit, it looks like. So we'll see if we can, maybe just a little down and a little sideways before we really start the big one in October. But those are kind of my general thoughts. I'll show you the charts once we get going.
Sure. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing that and looking forward to October as well, just a few days away. Now, this is the mid-morning miner update here, you guys. A lot of volatility this morning, mostly red. I actually posted on Twitter saying Bitcoin's up, miners are down. My thinking there, Freedom, from a fundamental point of view is these miners need Bitcoin price to go up and maintain a higher position for quite a bit of time to actually see material changes in their financials. It does the miners no good if Bitcoin spikes to 66 for an hour and then drops back down. I definitely think there's a bit of a lag factor there. Still a correlation, but maybe not moving in unison like you might see with MicroStrategy. So my point being, you guys, Bitcoin was up today. Most of the miners were down this morning. You can see they've turned around a little bit here, specifically in the case of Argo and Gryphon, having very nice days. Anything surprising you hear, Freedom? And how do you view that correlation between Bitcoin and Bitcoin miners? Do you think they are correlated, or do you think that's no longer the case?
Yeah. So I think they are correlated. I just don't think they're, in lockstep. I know last year before the big run, Bitcoin took off for, it might have been at least a month before miners really ran. I don't really see that happening this time, but they move together, but not like I said, not in lockstep. Especially the pure play miners, the CleanSparks, the Maras, Riots. They really obviously are much more reliant on Bitcoin price than your Wolves and IRENs and your BTBTs, your HPC plays. So you can kind of see. I really think that most miners are really going to start running hard once we break that 72K level. And I'll show you some charts back in time just to show you that, it really takes a really clear break of all-time highs to get the miners really going. And although we've kind of flirted with it, I don't think we've really seen that breakout. So that's kind of what I'm looking for things to really go apeshit, if you will.
If you will. We got a viewer from Toronto, Nashville, great city. I'll mention we had a good time in Nashville, Ohio. So a lot of viewers jumping in. We're up over 65 concurrent, Freedom. This chart we talk about a lot with Anthony market cap. We now have 10 of the miners over $1 billion market cap. Anthony's predicting Core Scientific will overtake Marathon for largest market cap in the sector. I wanted to get your thoughts on that statement. Then we'll talk about ETFs, and then we're off to the races here.
I don't know, man. I think it's going to be close. I think Mara actually, from a technical perspective, if there's a time for Mara to really run, it's going to be when Bitcoin really runs. So I think you might see some rotation into Mara and CleanSpark again once Bitcoin really breaks out. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I really think all the miners are about to, 3 to 4x, if not more, over the next 6 months. So should be a lot of growth, I would think, in the sector. It all kind of depends on Bitcoin, and people get mad. First of all, people get mad that I have conservative price predictions, but then somehow they also get mad that I'm a moon boy. So it's always something. I think it's possible to get the 8 to 10x's people want, but it's going to take a bigger Bitcoin. So if we get a 95K or 110K Bitcoin, it's going to take. It's not going to translate over quite as well. I mean, they'll still run, obviously, but if we get 150K or 175 or 200K, obviously these miners can, go absolutely insane. So either way, I think they're going to do really, really well. And I think the time is probably almost here, maybe after another week or so, 2 weeks maybe. Yeah. I think they're all going to do great.
It's a tough audience, the keyboard warriors. Hey, you're learning, Freedom. You can't win with them. You can't win without them. It's like dealing with your wife, buddy. You're always wrong. You're married. Yeah. You should know that. Both of us are married here. Yeah. No, it's been good overall. It's just during those corrections you take a lot of it, which that's what I signed up for. So happy to be back and happy to be I think coming out of the other end. I'm not going to lie, there could be still a little bit of turbulence here over the next few weeks, but I don't think anything insane. But yeah, just almost coming out of the tunnel, if you will, I think so. Yeah, we certainly are. Now, speaking of coming out of the tunnel, ETF inflows have really came out of the tunnel here in the last couple of days as well. I wanted to update. We've been talking about this one, 10 out of 12 consecutive days, 11 out of 12. Now we have September 26th, $365 million net inflows. They also crossed a major milestone this week, now over 300,000 Bitcoin that have been bought by the US ETFs since launch, you guys. And if you look at that daily production yesterday, 450 Bitcoin globally produced based on this new block reward size post-halving, yet 5,602 Bitcoin purchased in terms of US ETF volume. Keep in mind, that's just US, you guys, not any of the other countries or individual people that are actually buying these Bitcoin. And on top of that, many of the big miners are hodling and not even selling that daily production. Interesting, Hodl 15 also put out Coinbase app has seen a tremendous increase in downloads. So I think the FOMO is coming. I think we're starting to see the money flow back in, and I think the snowball is coming. So with that being said, Freedom, last slide here. We're in Amsterdam next week. You guys make sure if you're out there, come give us a visit, and I'll pass it over to you, Freedom. We can get into the charts wherever you'd like to start. Maybe Bitcoin, I guess, might be nice.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's see. Hopefully this works. Let me know, guys.
Yeah, I got the request there. Show on stream. There we go, buddy.
Okay.
You got the right monitor up. That's good.
Good to go?
Yeah, we're good to go. So you walk us through this. I'll go full screen just so people can see a little bit better. And you just walk us through exactly what we're looking at here, Freedom.
Yeah, man. So with Bitcoin, this is my primary count right now, but I think, like I talked about earlier, we might be running into, well, I know we are, right? Just a lot of resistance up here. So I think it's likely that we're going to get something, this B wave, this pullback essentially that I think is coming. I don't think it's going to be anything crazy, but we're just getting kind of up here on all these momentum indicators. So we'll see. It looks like we may need to chill out a little bit. If you look at, some of these times on the stochastic, right? When we start losing momentum, whoops, sorry. If we, here we go. So you can see on the MACD how we're kind of losing momentum here a little bit.
Now you talk about a resistance wall. What price are you seeing that wall at? Like 65 66,000, 67. Where are you seeing that first resistance?
Yeah, it's really all this 65 through 70, this huge block right here.
Okay.
And we're getting kind of high up in the stochastic RSI and in the RSI. So if you look, you can kind of see, let me pull out my.
And it's showing a little pixelated here. A couple comments, Freedom. I don't know if there's anything you can do on your side there.
Let me see here.
Not terrible. We can still see the lines, but the numbers are a little difficult.
Yeah, let me check something. I don't know if that'll help or not.
Yeah, it's a bit better for me. Anyways, just walk us through the kind of the numbers as you're speaking there. But
yeah, so
this big block is of resistance here.
Yeah, there's a big block of resistance up here. I think that before we get through it, we're likely going to pull back. Maybe not crazily, but I think there's a good chance that we revisit, this 61 to 63K area before we really break through this level, right? Just because anytime your indicators get this high up, you can kind of see in the past that it's likely that you're going to get some kind of cool off. So you can see here, it doesn't have to be a major cool off, but see how this stochastic is all the way at the top right now. We're at 88.
Yep.
And the RSI is getting way up here too. So I could see something like this happening. You can kind of see the trend.
When would you expect that pullback? I know you say your time frames are not as strong as maybe the price direction, but do you have a rough estimate?
Yeah, pretty soon, I would say. I think that overall, the tide definitely seems to be turning, especially with all the the money supply increasing, China cutting rates as well. I think in the seasonality piece, obviously, is important. I think for October, November, December should all be great months, but I think there's a chance here, just looking technically, that we do pull back nothing crazy, but I could see, at least a 5%, move down, which would probably be healthy, honestly, and just kind of, I think of it as, gathering some more fuel, if you will, before we really try to break through this big ass wall that we got. So we've kind of got to the wall now, but the problem is we're kind of running out of supplies. You know what I mean? Running out of steam from a technical standpoint. So I think there's a good chance we do pull back here pretty soon,
Okay.
and hopefully we hold this green box.
So with that being said, if we are expecting a little bit of a pullback, maybe a great buying opportunity for people who are looking to get some money off the sideline. We've asked for minor recommendations here. Bit Digital, IREN, Cipher, CleanSpark, Marathon. Those have all kind of been listed in the chat so far. TeraWulf. I don't know if you have any specific order, Freedom, but maybe start us off
Yeah.
with some of your top areas of interest, I guess we'll call it.
Yeah. So I'll just go through. I'm going to do these on a little higher. So the daily time frame. This is my account for CleanSpark, which I know is somewhat low. Well, for some people, they think it's high. They think it's a moon boy target. Some people think it's low.
So what is that target box? Again, it's a little
Yeah,
bit hard to make out the numbers there.
really? Okay. I don't know
I'm
why.
also wondering, Freedom, maybe if we go full screen, you can just kill your virtual background and they'll just see the chart. Because normally
Yeah,
that
do
does
that.
a bit of
Let
band.
me let me do that.
Sure.
Does
And
that
I'll
help?
just go full screen on the chart, and that way you can talk us right through what you're seeing here.
All right. What does it look like now? Any better?
Yeah, a little bit, buddy. I can see the numbers. Okay, CleanSpark. So it looks like the box is in the up to the $50 range there, eh?
Yeah, I mean that's the higher end for me. But it could go crazy. Again, it all depends on Bitcoin. So that's the issue, right? I mean, at the end of the day, these are heavily correlated to Bitcoin's price. So
Okay.
if we get 150K Bitcoin, then it's probably looking like, even higher up, right? But if we get a 95K Bitcoin, we might only see maybe we only see 35 or 40, right? But this is my long-term chart. I do think we bottomed here at, what was it, seven something. But again, the indicators here are just not really the normal RSI, but the stochastic is pretty high up. I got this little arrow here pointing to it, and you can kind of
Yep.
see. Doesn't work every time, but it is a decent indicator of a possible pullback. And this is the same for all miners. I'm not saying we're going to get, something insane, but if Bitcoin does pull back, which I am expecting, you can kind of see the trend again, right? These little dips here from just resetting the oscillators, so coming back down, right?
Yep.
So right now, as you can see, we're all the way up here. So we haven't gotten across yet, but could happen any day. Could grind a little higher too, and then happen. But eventually, this oscillator will have to get reset. And these dumps, I wouldn't call them dumps, but I mean they are kind of significant. 27%.
Those are the red lines you're referring to there?
Yeah, so you can see the distance here. So I'm not thinking anything insane, but I'm just saying that we could have. I wouldn't be surprised to see a 15% correction across the board in miners at all when Bitcoin does. Yeah,
Now,
when Bitcoin does. Go ahead.
I was just going to ask you, I know you're saying a slight retracement in the near term here. What is your current price target on Bitcoin for this cycle?
Yeah, so I have kind of, I mean, it's really hard to predict. I'm thinking, 95 to 120, and then 150 being the max. So we really don't know. And anyone that says they do is lying. It's just all based on fib levels, right? Mainly. But, we could go 150. I'm not really I think this next move is going to take us to 95 to somewhere between 95 and like 140, 150K. So that's what I'm focused on now.
That's quite a bit lower than a lot of other people are saying or quoting or predicting. Why do you feel like this run isn't going to be maybe as enthusiastic or optimistic as some of these other analysts?
Yeah. So I personally don't. I'm in the camp that the economy is not in a great spot. So I don't necessarily see the bull run going till 2026 or whatever people think. I personally think that um, we'll probably maybe Q1 at the latest peak out is what I think for Bitcoin. Maybe alts go a little longer, but I really think that Bitcoin could peak, even December or January of this year. Maybe later. I'm trying to again stay away from the time based predictions, but for me,
Yep.
I personally think that I personally don't see it going, really far into 2025 or 2026. So
Gotcha.
that's
Okay,
that's
so
just my opinion. We can't go that high that quick. Typically, I mean, we could have an insane blow off top, like some people are talking about. Some people think right, really, really quick, and really, really high. Right, that's harder to do than over a long time period to go higher, if that makes sense.
gotcha. Now, you mentioned earlier you think most miners will do anywhere from a 3 to 5x based on that Bitcoin price you just talked about. Can you walk us through some of your top picks in terms of who you think is going to be closer to the top end of that range? And the numbers
Yeah.
actually
So
look quite a bit better here. I think maybe just even moving your mouse, but what right now I can read everything on the screen. So maybe just the less mouse movement, I guess, or whatever.
okay.
Yeah, but it's
Yeah.
looking
So
pretty good
from
now, buddy.
for me, I like BTBT. I like IREN. I like CleanSpark, Wolf, Bitfarms. Those are my
Maybe
main.
start with BTBT. That was in the questions here too. Let's go through that one and why you like it. What do you see in here?
Yeah. So BTBT. Let me get out to a higher time frame, but um, this is really the count I have for BTBT. Basically, an A wave up, triangle for a B, and then looking for somewhere in here. You'll see on all these that I have kind of a realistic time frame or a realistic area, right? And then I also have one fib higher because no one really knows. So I think there's a very good chance we could get to this green box. But I also think that it's possible to get up here. It just depends, right? It depends on
So for
Bitcoin and
BTBT, where's that green box? Looks like 13 to 2150 area.
yeah, 14 to 22. Um,
Okay.
so that's what I think is probably pretty realistic for BTBT. Same thing as far as the momentum goes. So we have a nice bullish cross here on the weekly stochastic, but if we look at the daily, we are still way up here, right? So
Gotcha. Okay.
yeah,
So
well,
that's
I'm going to try to move the mouse less.
yeah. Well, even just the audio is not too bad here. We can talk through, but as long as we're explaining where these boxes are. So BTBT, you're thinking this one has a lot of movement. We're actually running our Miner Madness competition right now too. This is one of the top picks that we've seen across the board. With that being said, Freedom, I know you just got rid of a rental property. Is this one that you're looking to deploy money into when and if we do see this slight pullback?
Yeah. So BTBT is actually the main one that I am watching. Personally, BTBT and I would say IREN as a second one. Those are the two that I'm probably most bullish on. I like BTBT because it is, more of an ETH proxy play and the only one out of the miners. I like that piece, and I think that ETH is about to start outperforming Bitcoin relatively soon. ETH BTC looks pretty close to bottom to me, so I like BTBT. I like that they don't dilute as much as other miners. So that's one of my top picks and one of the ones that I'll be adding the most to.
So you actually think Ethereum is going to outperform Bitcoin?
Yeah, it always typically does once actually things start moving.
Interesting.
So we'll see. we'll see if that plays out. If not, still got a really low market cap, pretty low dilution, actual real HPC customers. So I just think it's I think it's undervalued fundamentally, and from a technical standpoint, I think it has a great setup.
Gotcha. Now you also mentioned IREN. That's actually the top pick overall in the Miner Madness of hundreds of different entries. Let's pull up IREN maybe here, Freedom, and take a look at your target box for them.
IREN. Okay, let's do that. Yeah, so
You're saying
IREN,
that's second to BTBT right now in terms of your personal.
yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, personally for me, I like IREN a lot. I played this move right here, roughly 4 to 15. Thought we would stop right here, about 9, but we ended up going lower. And basically, I think this one could easily go, 30, 45. I've seen targets, up to 100. I mean, it's possible, guys. I keep my targets more conservative than most people. And yeah, so those are my targets.
Yeah, and that's fair. And to be honest, I know the HC Wainwright conference there, they were asking the CEOs their price target on Bitcoin. Fred Thiel from Marathon was quoting 100,000. I don't think it's necessarily bad to be a little pessimistic here. If it works out great and it surprises us or over exceeds expectations, that's a good news story. But I wouldn't necessarily be on the bleeding edge in terms of price targets. I don't think either. Now, we have a question here from the audience talking about market manipulation. This is something I brought up on Twitter this morning. So a lot of people will say, hey, Bitcoin's up 2, 3, 4%. Why are the miners down? Why are the miners flat? However, there have been a lot of days where the miners will be up 5, 10% and Bitcoin will be flat. Do you think this is correlation? Do you think this is manipulation? Do you think this is timing? What's your expert opinion on that one, Freedom?
Yeah, so I'm not an expert on that stuff, but I would say that just the markets are going to move, differently, right? Everything's not going to move in unison, even when it comes to altcoins or even when it comes to miners. I get questions all the time like, why is IREN up and Bitfarms down? Why is Mara up and CleanSpark down? Like they're all going to move at different times. It's never going to be just everything goes up in unison together all at once. So that's just the way the market. That's just how the market is, man. Nothing will move in a straight line as far as it going up or down, and then nothing's going to move altogether. If you just look at the miners today, for example, you got some up, some down. Some of the micro miners, the smaller ones are up 15%, while the other ones are up. So it's really just rotation, right? Some of the HPC AI miners look like they're taking a little bit more of a hit today than the pure plays.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean?
Now, another question I have for you here. Do you think going into this bull run, having a hodl is beneficial? Or do you think, for example, IREN and Bit Digital, not huge hodls, at least in terms of Bitcoin, they've opted to really invest that money in upgrading their fleet efficiency and obviously exahash in the terms of IREN. Bit Digital is exploring other things in terms of HPC. Do you think there's any positioning in terms of hodl, no hodl? Or is it more so based on the company itself, management, metrics internally?
Yeah, so I think it plays a role, as you know, and a lot of people know. Like, I'm not the biggest fundamental guy. I think that they'll all have their time. So I think a lot of the pure play miners, like the CleanSparks and Mara and Riots that have the hodls, they're going to obviously need Bitcoin to go higher, which it will. But when they do go higher, right, they're going to be more in lockstep with Bitcoin. The problem is Bitcoin's just been going sideways for 6 months, and then the miners have been diluting during that time, right? So I think once Bitcoin really runs, that's really going to help those with the hodl. I think Mara specifically, having one of the biggest hodls, will run very hard when that time comes, when Bitcoin really runs. And I think that some of the other miners like the BTBT or Cores, for example, Cipher, all these plays, the HPC AI piece, they've had other reasons to run, whereas some of the pure play miners haven't yet. But I think that all that stacking BTC is going to pay off, I guess, and there will be a rotation over.
Gotcha.
So
Now, interesting question here from C. So I'm going to put him on blast a little bit. He says, I love how these gurus tell their followers that Bitcoin miners move 3 to 5 times Bitcoin, now changing their story. So we're definitely not changing our story. And I wanted to bring up, if you can bring up the Bitcoin chart, Freedom, over the last 6 months. I just wanted to show exactly what we're talking about here. So if you look at Bitcoin over the last 6 months, overall, it's down 5%. If you take a look at IREN over the last 6 months, which was the pick that you were just talking about there, they're actually up 64% over the last 6 months. So in terms of the leverage, that's exactly what you're seeing there. Now, we have seen a lot of the miners retreat as well. And in a lot of cases, they've actually retreated more than Bitcoin 7% over the 6 months. So you do see that correlation, good or bad. But I would definitely say they are a leveraged play. What would your response to this be, Freedom?
yeah, I think they are a leveraged play. I've never said 3 to 5x. I mean, there's a lot of hilarious people in the comments I see right now, which is just based off the sentiment, right? People are all pissed, and there's a bunch of maxis in there. But yeah, I mean, Bitcoin miners, they are a leverage play. I've never been in the camp that they're, a 3 to 5x, but I think that, if Bitcoin does a 2x, most of these will do a 3 to 5x, which I think is a completely reasonable expectation. Typically, miners and alts tend to outperform Bitcoin when it actually breaks all-time highs. So comparing it now is just useless. The people probably don't understand that component. But yeah, typically when Bitcoin actually breaks out is when proxies and everything else will outperform. Some have outperformed better than miners, like MSTR, that's for sure. But I do think they are still a leverage play, and I think that'll show up here very shortly when Bitcoin breaks all-time highs.
Now, you just mentioned MicroStrategy as the proxy play. Brett agrees here in the comments. Do you have a chart on MicroStrategy? And if not, what are your thoughts on them as an investment vehicle versus the miners?
Yeah, I think it's a great play, actually. I wish I had bought more MSTR. I do have a very small position, but I don't have nearly enough. So MSTR, I think is a great play. That's about the only thing I agree with the little Brett monkey that has said so far. But I think he's right. MSTR is a good play. I do think that it's going to run pretty hard with BTC again, and I'm targeting at least 350. Could go 500. We'll see. Again, it depends a lot on Bitcoin.
So you're saying even after the split, MicroStrategy 350, 500 range. I think last I saw they're in the 170 this morning, something in that range. How are you feeling in terms of confidence level on that one? I guess of all the stocks, this is probably the most correlated to Bitcoin, eh?
Yeah. So that is the nice part. I mean, obviously, they have their own strategy, and they're kind of unique in how they operate under Michael Saylor. So, yeah, I mean, I'm pretty confident. It's a I would say lower risk than the miners, but I also think that most miners, or at least a lot of the miners, will probably outperform MSTR towards the end when things really go, into mania, I guess you would say. So a lot of people think the miners just have, which they haven't done. They've done well in certain spans, but again, dilution is a piece that we all have to be aware of with the miners. And if you haven't been kind of swinging in and out, it's probably been a little rough. But I think that the miners will do very well, and they typically start to run right about now, whenever Bitcoin actually decisively breaks all-time highs. So we still haven't really done that. So I think that your miners and your alts and stuff like that are going to run more towards the euphoria stage, if you will. Right now, there's no euphoria, right? I mean, we barely hit 70K and then came right back down. So.
Well, and Anthony had a piece about inflation adjusted all-time highs for Bitcoin. And if you look at that, we're still quite a bit back from where we were in the past. Now, this is a good question here, and you kind of just talked about this a little bit. Can you ask Freedom about Bitcoin cycles with miners? If we think Bitcoin hits 150K, which is at the upper end of your band, but still within your band this quarter in a couple days, Q4, do you think Q1 is going to be when the miners alt spike? Do you think it'll be late in Q4, Christmas time? What's kind of your thinking there?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, it's really hard to tell. But I think that alts will run after Bitcoin, but some alts will run with Bitcoin. So even with alts, there's different structures, right? So Solana is going to run with Bitcoin. FET is going to run with Bitcoin. I think most alts will probably carry into Q1, maybe even Q2. And then, like I said, Bitcoin late Q4 or early Q1 would be my best guess. But again, I did think Bitcoin would probably peak. My thing's always been around December, but I'm going to have to move that back just a few months. But I still think late Q4. I know some people are saying even earlier. But and some people are saying way later. For me, I think December, January, February for Bitcoin, and then for alts maybe 3 months after that, or maybe even a little bit longer. And then miners, I think, will run more with Bitcoin. But again, some of them, I mean, it really doesn't. It's a good question, but it doesn't really matter. You know what I mean? They're all going to run
very
over the
valid
next
question.
few. Yeah, so good question, but I think
Hard to
some people are
predict.
trying to move money from miners to alts. I think you might be able to get away with that on some, but I also think that when Bitcoin really goes, when we start seeing 75, 85, I think everything's going to run. So I don't think you're going to be able to necessarily play Bitcoin and play miners and then move money to alts. You might be able to get lucky on some, but we'll see, right? It's a nice way to think, or a good thought, but
Yeah,
the market will.
optimistic. Now, I got 2 questions for you of my own, and then we've got another good one from the audience here. So first question is about sell strategy, Freedom. I've said my personal strategy, and I'm a little hesitant about this because of your price targets, but my thinking is roughly when Bitcoin hits $95,000 US, if and when, I'll sell 20% of my total investment exposure to this area. Not necessarily Bitcoin, but miners, proxies, MicroStrategy, whatever the case is. Then every incremental 15,000 of Bitcoin move, I'll continue to sell 20% or 15% or whatever the case is at predetermined levels based on Bitcoin price is my thinking at this point. The reason I'm thinking it that way is because I'm not a technician. I don't necessarily have the confidence in myself to time exactly the right exit. So I'm looking at kind of the dollar cost average in reverse. My question to you, Freedom, you obviously have a lot more expertise with the specifics, timing, entry, exit. What is your sell strategy?
Yeah, so I think even being a technical guy, my strategy, I think I've said that a few times, even when I was on here in the past, but mine's very similar, right? So I have these targets, whether it be for MSTR or Mara or Bitcoin, these Fibonacci targets, and you can basically, scale out, as these fibs go up, right? So I would scale out kind of like you're talking about, maybe 25% for Mara at 33, and then 25% at 40 at 50, and then if we get to 70, I might sell another 33%, and I might hold the moon bag to see if we get to 85. I might hold the last whatever that is 15%. So that's kind of what I do too. I don't think anyone's good enough to time the exits perfectly. So I think that's pretty much exactly what I would do personally.
Okay, so you wait till you're in that green box and then you kind of average out. It's kind of similar approach, I guess, just a little bit more based on the chart.
Yep, exactly.
Now, my other question to you, this is something Anthony and I have debated, and I sometimes feel like it's a missed opportunity. I sometimes feel like it's added stress. Yourself and many of the other technicians take advantage of these moves, these Fibonacci waves to scalp, right, or trade. So you'll wait for the wave You'll exit a trade, make 10, 20%, then you'll re-enter on the bottom. Again, I haven't really ever gotten into that. My strategy is buy and hold companies I believe in long-term. That's it. Do you think, which strategy do you think is more profitable over the long term? And at what point do you think people are ready to really start trusting their own intuition and chart ability to make those scalp trades?
Yeah, so I don't think most people, like even me, I'll be honest, like I'm not the best trader, right? I've gotten some things wrong, I've gotten some things right. What I do is try to time whether it's with shares or options. I use these green boxes to average into options positions, right? So I might average in, to a position, whether it's options or into shares, in this range, and then I'm just looking to catch the meat of the move, right? Whenever it comes up here. So I use the Fibonacci at retracement levels to average in. And then I do what you talked about earlier. I average out, but I also have, Hodl portfolios where I just hold, CleanSpark and Mara shares. I hold a lot of alts. I hold Bitcoin, obviously, and I just hold those. So really, my swing trading piece is just a component of what I do. But I don't even trade, like some people are good enough to trade every day and whatnot. I'm not or trade the intraday stuff. I don't do that. I just am more of like a Wolf 2 to 6 or IREN 5 to 15 type of guy, where I'm just, and I don't get those all right, and I don't get them all perfectly right. I might buy a few sets of shares or a few sets of calls, and average into the call position or average into the share position over a month, and then in 3 or 4 months I might sell my IREN or something. But I still think for most people, buying and holding is the key long term. The only issue with miners is they are so volatile that you can really leave a lot of stuff on the table. You know what I mean, on like these big moves, right? If you got all the way up in Mara to 33 and you didn't take any
That's
profits,
my worry, right? Is you're trying to get cute and make 10% or get a 50 cents on each share or something like that, and then you miss a 4-year rally that you've been waiting for and preparing for. So I'm not. I have 2 kids, Freedom. I have a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old. They give me enough stress. I don't need to be trying to day trade my extra few percent here and there. Now, another great question from Gary, actually. If you expect miners with HODL to increase more in a bull run, shouldn't they drop more than non-HODL miners in the next bear? I would probably say depending if they keep that HODL or not. Last bear market, those with HODL dropped at the same rate as others. What are your thoughts on this situation?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. To be honest, Gary, I think all the miners will drop a lot, still, right? So I think it's a common misconception that, it's still a great question. I get you're saying which ones will drop more. I think that almost all of them will drop quite a bit, to be honest. Just because maybe even the ones that are less tied to Bitcoin, if Bitcoin drops, 70% or 60%, some people think that we're never going back to, we're never going to get a big correction again. I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think we'll still get a correction. I do think the corrections are decreasing as far as how intense they are. But, if we have a massive recession, Bitcoin's never really been through a recession before, like of that magnitude. If it really is coming, we'll see. But I think that miners, maybe cores, right, for instance, it's more resilient and it doesn't drop as far. Maybe it drops 60%, right? Because it's not nearly as tied to, the pure Bitcoin play. Whereas maybe Riot or someone like that doesn't have, as much other shit going on. Maybe they drop even farther, right? So I think they'll all drop quite a bit. Unfortunately, I would definitely recommend selling all your miners. I would not hodl them through anything. I would sell all your miners, all your alts. Bitcoin's a little different, but yeah, that's even MSTR. I would sell most of that for the monkey guy in there, rat guy. But yeah.
Be nice, Freedom. We're all here. Bitfarms, next question. I'm curious about this one. We just had Ben on the program. Did you catch that interview, Freedom?
I don't know. I saw a snippet of it, but I didn't see the
Say
whole
yes.
thing.
Say yes,
Yes,
but
saw it
I watch
all.
all the videos, man. Why would I wouldn't
I,
miss any video.
I would not miss any of
Anyways,
that shit, man.
should watch it, and it was an awesome video. And obviously, they've reached a settlement with Riot. So I'm curious to get your thoughts on Riot and Bitfarms. Let's start with Bitfarms because Rob actually specifically asked about them. Where do you see Bitfarms going, and how do you, I guess, to get your fundamental side of things, how do you feel about the settlement with Riot? Are you happy with that, or did you want to see them combined, or what was your take?
Yeah. Fundamentals wise, again, guys, I don't know nearly as much as most of you in the audience, probably, or definitely not as much as Bryce or Anthony. But I was in favor of Riot, leaving Bitfarms alone. Personally, I don't think Riot has any need to be acquiring other businesses. I think they should, no offense, just work on their own stuff and let Bitfarms be. That was kind of my take on that. So I'm happy that they that kind of is all squashed, and I think it's kind of a cloud that's lifted off of Bitfarms now. Personally,
Yeah, no, good
that's kind of
answer.
my
And I just wanted to preface you guys, all of this is personal opinion. That's why we have different guests on the channel, right? Everybody's got an opinion on all of these situations. So I appreciate you giving your honest context there, Freedom. And I just wanted to call that out that you and I obviously have different opinions on things. Anthony and I do. Anthony and you do. It's all what I like about the community is you take the consensus and hopefully if there's enough of us talking about things, the group or the herd mentality can get it right. So I just wanted to
yeah
call that out. Now, Bitfarms specifically, your green box here, where does that start and end for Bitfarms?
yeah. So Bitfarms, I'm really looking for like 10 to 15, roughly. Um, and that's just drawn from basically this Y target right here, this WXY. So these typically do a 1-to-1 ratio, which would be 16. But even that seems, I'm not saying it's too generous, but that's why I have the 0.786 here just in case, which would be a little bit lower fib target to hit. But I do think 9 to 15 or 10 to 15 roughly is a better or is a realistic price target for Bitfarms for this cycle. So that would be roughly 5 to 8x, which is a little bit one of the higher ones. I think I think it's got a good chance, and I think that a lot of the fundamental shit has kind of held this one down a little bit. I know Sebastian is a big believer in Bitfarms. I watch a lot of his stuff from fundamentals, just like I watch a lot of your guys' stuff. So I think Bitfarms is a good company. So we'll see how it plays out.
Gotcha. And in terms of Riot, what are you seeing on Riot's chart right now?
Yeah, so Riot is one. I have these targets, but I gotta say that I think it's probably more, in here 25 to 38 is what I have. But it's one of the weaker ones, which I think everyone's quite aware of. So I mean, I'm hoping it gets to 25. Hope's not a strategy, but for those people that are deep in Riot, I hope it does well, and I hope it blows past all my targets, right? And maybe goes all the way up to this next fib. We'll see. For right now, they just got a lot of work to do, and you can kind of tell that it's been lagging most of the other miners.
Yeah,
So those are just
certainly
my
has. And
opinions on it.
a lot of people expressing frustration there. We're going to have the mining results for September out in a couple days here. So a lot of people will be watching the operational number from Riot, I'm sure. Now, Wolf is another one we're getting some questions for here. You guys make sure you get your comments in the chat. Also curious, I asked it at the start of the program, but where everybody's watching from. We've got some pretty cool metrics on our on our audio podcast showing all the countries, but I'd be curious to hear where everybody's from in the chat here. Now, Freedom, we're up over 130 concurrent viewers. So a lot of people in the chat here wanted to know about Wolf. This is one of my top 3 positions. extremely excited about TeraWulf, what they're doing with the Wolf Den, the hyperscaler situation, and obviously Bitcoin mining as well. What are your thoughts here, and what is the green box of truth telling you on this one?
Yeah, so I like Wolf a lot too. It's one of the stronger technical miners for sure. So for me, I'm thinking at least 15, but could go 20. I know some people want it to go, to old all-time highs. I think that's, anything's possible, guys. Like I said, my targets are actually very conservative compared to most. I think most people are now, at the start, most people were kind of pissed at me for my targets, which have stayed the same, by the way, the whole time. But now people are saying my targets are aggressive. So you know how it goes. I think these are still realistic, and they've been my targets for a long time. All based on this first move right here, which I believe was an A wave. And I think we're about to start. Basically, I think we're in this wave 3 right now, and it'll break into something like this, and that'll be your 3. So anywhere 14 to 23, but again, if stuff goes crazy, I could see next fib up, which would be 33. And again, all these depend on Bitcoin, guys. So if you get a 95K Bitcoin, I think it's unlikely that most of these are going to do like a 10x. But if you get, if my shit gets blown out of the water and we go to 200K, then I mean, all these are,
Yeah, I don't think anyone will be too. I don't think anyone will be too
Exactly.
mad at you if we go to 200K here. Now we've also got a couple questions about Soluna. One from Qatar. So, do you have Soluna slide?
Yeah, I don't know if it's updated. Yeah, so I can do this live real quick. So Soluna,
And then Cipher's another one we're getting quite a, just as a prep. If you want to maybe even do Cipher first, I see that one on your list.
okay, yeah, Cipher. So Cipher just had a very, obviously that news. This is a very, very bullish candle. I'm guessing it has a lot of volume too. Yeah, look at that volume coming in. So this is on a weekly chart, so it just engulfed, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks of price action. If it closes up here, which we're getting pretty close to the close, which would be fantastic. But yeah, I think Cipher 17. The higher end target for me is 30, but I think that 17 is doable. You'll notice that most of my targets, guys, are in the 4 to 5x, 6x range, and that's just because that's what the Fibonacci's levels say, first of all, and then I again think Bitcoin, a 2x from here would put us at what, 130K, and I think these can easily 2x over Bitcoin. And I'll just show you, how bad is the mouse right now, Bryce? Is it bad?
I don't know. Some people are saying the resolution's pretty bad. Some people are saying it's okay. I'm having a bit of trouble reading the numbers, but I'm not super sure what else we could do about it.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, but if you can just talk through the numbers, I think it's fairly sufficient. We can see the general trend and the general lines and everything, just the specific numbers, but you've been reading them out good.
Yeah. So Cipher 17 could go 30. Again, highly dependent upon Bitcoin, but I think this last candle here, this weekly candle, was a huge step in the right direction. Like I said, it's engulfed the last 6 weeks of price action. And it has a shit ton of volume, so I think that's a great week for Cipher, a great week for a lot of miners, to be honest.
So explain that one to me, because I've started using the candlesticks rather than the line charts, and looking at the daily candles, the weekly candles. I've seen a bunch of the technical guys on Twitter saying, hey, if we can get X amount of daily candles above whatever. Talk to me about, what are you looking for on this chart? Do you use daily? Do you use weekly? Are you looking for a certain pattern, a certain count? What are you looking at that's so exciting with these candles?
Yeah, so I'll be honest, I'm not a huge expert. That's like a whole subset of technical analysis. I don't know what it's called, but candlestick, Specifically, I know this is a very bullish candle, mainly because the volume, and this is what's called a bullish engulfing candle, which means it basically eats up all these price action. Like this is going to close higher than this week, this week, this week, this week, this week, this week. So that's considered a bullish engulfing candlestick. I look for the higher the time frame, the more important the candle, right? So when you hear people talking about 4-hour candlesticks, that that doesn't really matter, right? But if you're talking on a weekly time frame, that's much more significant. Monthly being even more significant. So the higher the time frame, the more significant it is to get candle closes. That's why everybody wants to see a nice monthly candle close for Bitcoin, or weekly candle close. Those are much more important than candles closing on the hourly or the daily, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It does make sense. And that higher time preference, obviously, the more established the trend. I'm just looking at the miners now. As you say, we're about an hour out from close. They've turned red again, at least in my portfolio for the most part. I was predicting a reversal today, Freedom. What do you think we're going to see here going into the weekend in terms of Bitcoin price and miner close / open on Monday?
Yeah, so kind of like I said earlier, I do think Bitcoin is likely going to chill out here soon. Nothing insane, hopefully, but I do think it's likely that we get at least a little chill out. So I don't know how the miners are going to respond to that. I wouldn't be surprised if we see another, 1 or 2 red days. But overall, that's why I'm doing this on the weekly charts, because the weekly looks great for the miners and for Bitcoin. But really, I would not be surprised to see, if we look at, we all going to make it, just as a reference, I wouldn't be surprised to see, a decent pullback here, maybe into, even half of this whole move up recently, 50% retracement. So something like, let's see what this is. It'll probably be, 10%. Yeah. 10% retracement would be completely fine and healthy, because kind of like Bitcoin, we're running into a pretty significant level right here. You can see a lot of candles that closed in and around this level.
Yeah.
So I think it's probably likely just like Bitcoin. I know it's kind of a stupid analogy, but we're getting up to we're getting really tired after our run up the mountain, and we're probably going to have to set up camp for a day or two, and just kind of let the indicators reset, maybe pull back a little bit, some bullish consolidation before we really break through this level. Same thing with 65 to 70K Bitcoin. I could be completely wrong. We could just go completely, ape shit and run through all of it, but it's unlikely. But if there was ever a time for things to be unlikely, it would be now, right? So,
and I'm just too scared to try and time it. So I'm just going to be holding along here, and set up my camp, have cook some s'mores here for a couple days, and then I'll move along. I know we already talked about Bit Digital, but we did get a question for Bit Digital and Cores. Can you just pull that one up and tell us the green box numbers for both of these?
Yeah,
I don't know.
BT. I have 14 to 22. And it'll probably look, something like this. We don't know yet. So that's another thing. I'll be able to project these a little bit farther if you follow on X. Once I get more clues, right, within these waves. Right now, we're just starting this last move up. Same thing for Bitcoin. So it's really impossible to know. It's already hard enough to predict the exact peaks, but right now we don't really have any clues. Bitcoin is the same way. It hasn't really started its big impulse yet. So that's why these are kind of ranges. And the more price action we get, the more dialed in we'll be able to hopefully get to these price targets. So for BT is 14.22. And then also, I just wanted to be clear, I don't recommend anyone, because sometimes people take this out of context. I don't recommend anyone sell their miners and try to buy lower or do any stupid shit. I'm just saying you might get a pullback, and you can just top off your positions or add, or because sometimes I say this stuff and then people are like, oh, Freedom said we were going to pull back and it just went up, and I'm sidelined. Like you don't want to sell anything now. Even Bitcoin or miners or alts or MSTR or coin, you just don't want to be on the wrong side, in my opinion. So
I agree with that wholeheartedly. I would not be. Yeah. Also, shorting or sitting on the sidelines right now is not the place for me. However, there is money to be made on each and every one of these moves. Now I know we're at the hour, Freedom. Maybe we can just close out with Core quickly. Bring that one up. Tell us the green box, and then if you want to flip on the camera, we can do a closeout here and get on with the weekend, buddy.
yeah, let's see. So Core, can you guys see that? Hopefully, it's a little laggy on my end. So Cores, my green box is kind of conservative on this one. Could probably be honestly up a little higher, but for now, I have 21 to 30. But I could see this one going higher. The issue is that I do see a lot of the other miners getting a lot of attention as well, right? So Coors has kind of been the golden pony for the last, for a while, right? It's just been one of the strongest ones, along with some of the others. But I can see, some of these other, laggards, I guess you would call them. I don't like the word, but I mean, it's true, the Riots and the Maras and the CleanSparks, some of the more core miners, Bitfarm, some of them taking some of the capital. So we'll see. I think Coors is obviously a great miner and a good play, but I have them probably going more conservative than a lot of people do. So most of these are going to be conservative price targets, guys, compared to most people, and they always have been. And it's just for the same reason Bryce said. It's better for me to be wrong to the upside than for me to promise some crazy shit up here. If I promised let's just put on the 1.618. If I promise, there'll be some people saying it's going to the 2 extension, right? Which would be at 125. So could I say 125 and probably get more followers and more likes and less people talking in the comments? Yeah. But I'd rather just say 30. And if it goes to 60, you'll be happy versus me saying 125 and it going to 60. So
Yeah, under promise,
kind of
over deliver. I've found that's a good
yeah.
strategy pretty much with anything in life, actually. Now,
Yep.
Freedom, if you want to bring up your video again, we can close out here. I know we're just over the hour now. We appreciate your time. We got some great price targets out of you. Nice to get your opinion from the technical side of things, as Anthony and I are more fundamental based. But anything we've missed, anything you want people watching for, or anything final words from your side there?
Yeah. I mean, I would just say, now is the time to, you know, start getting on or at least stay on the train. I wouldn't be trying to do any crazy moves right now. I do think, October, November, December, January, February are all going to be great months for Bitcoin and for miners and MSTR and coin. So I would just say, stay long. Don't get worried if we do get a little pullback. I think everybody's fairly weathered by this point, anyways. So I don't think any miners are going to need any pep talk on holding through crazy price action. But I'm bullish. I just think that over the next week or so we may see a little cool off, but nothing insane, hopefully. So Bitcoin will lead the way, and I think Bitcoin, will in time just might have a little more shaky over the next week or so. So those are my general thoughts.
Well, it's a great takeaway. We'll be happy to have you back in a couple months here, buddy. Give us an update. See if this Q4 prediction came true. It's looking a little pixelated even on your video camera there, bud. You might have to take some of that real estate income you made and
Yeah,
upgrade your modem or something down there.
right. I might need to increase. I think I'm going to not do this dumbass background next time.
I told you, bud. I told you the virtual backgrounds. Anyways, we appreciate your time, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you're still here, hit the like button. Have a fantastic weekend. Hopefully, you're still up on the week despite the red we're seeing today. And we'll see you back here next week, Monday. We've got Jason Less on from Riot next week. It'll be our last live podcast before Amsterdam. And hopefully a lot of green shoots, as Anthony would say, reporting. Talk to you guys soon. Freedom, have a great weekend, and congrats on the close.